She has authored a book titled Analysis of Algorithms. She has been the editor of various books published by eminent publishers like Wiley, Taylor and Francis, CRC Press, etc. She is a member IEEE, and she has been shortlisted in top 5 for IEEE Women Achiever Award. She is a reviewer of many peer reviewed journals and contributed to the academic research in terms of projects, papers, and patents. We are very much glad to have you here as our today's expert speaker, Dr. Nonita ma'am, and we request you to kindly proceed with the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chetrani, for such warm introduction and such warm welcome. Thank you, Dr. Shiva. And thank you all the participants for joining us today. I'm just going to share my screen and then we are going to start. So just confirm whether the screen is visible.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
It is visible.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming. Um, okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And we are going to explore one of the very important critical topics in modern engineering, that is the cyber security protocols and standards for cyber physical systems. So now before we dive in, so let me set the context first. So how many of you are driving a car? You or your family member have used a pacemaker, uh, seen power plant or any manufacturing plant, traveled by aircraft. I guess every one of you. So these all are examples of CPS. So although we don't know it by that name, but these all are cyber physical systems. So, when we talk about this, the line between digital and physical, so that has become a little closer, it has blurred. So everything now comes under the combination of computation and physical, right? So today we are going to explore these protocols. Today we are going to understand that what are the standards that we are going to use for them. So, since this is our third lecture, so you must be aware of cyber physical systems. What are these? What are the basic requirements? I'm not going to go much deeper into this, but because of this particular session, I've just had one simple slide for that. So when we talk about cyber physical system, so these are the system where computers and physical world, they work together. Like your this example that is given in the figure, your braking system in the car, your aircraft autopilot system that actually decides the altitude, right? Factory robots. So this is the integration of computation, that we are computing various parameters, and then the communication, and then the physical processes, right? Physical capability, physical processes. So this tight integration is what makes CPS so powerful, right? So when we have got an autonomous vehicle like autonomous car, so it has got several sensors, cameras, radars that actually perceive the environment, and these sensors then feed the data to the computational unit, and that decides that whether we should brake, whether we should turn, whether we should accelerate. And those decisions are actually then transmitted to actuators. The actuators, the actual devices which are going to execute those commands. So this all complete system that come under the umbrella of CPS, right? So that means here, cyber and the physical, they both are inseparable. A little amount of error here that can lead us to physical safety, that can actually compromise our physical safety. So that is why we always say, there is a famous quote in cyber physical system, that it can lead to life or death matter. So that is why these things are considered very important here. So now we are delving upon to the main important topic of today's sessions, that is the various protocols and standards. So now if we talk about protocols, there are two main important protocols that we are going to discuss. One is the communication standards, that how these various devices are going to communicate with each other. And since the protocols or the communication protocols that we are using in CPS, they are quite widely used, and they were quite, in space since quite long. So security was not considered while they were developed. So another protocols that we will be considering are security protocols. So the first that we are going to understand is communication standards, which are going to actually enable these devices to communicate seamlessly across the system. So three protocols that we are going to discuss today. One is the Modbus, right? So Modbus, it is known as industrial workhorse. Why industrial workhorse? Because it was used for industrial purpose. It is an industrial standard for industrial automation. And this is known as a legacy protocol. Why legacy? Because it has been around 1979, around 45 years back. And still we are using it everywhere. The important thing that we considered while making this Modbus was simplicity. That there is one master and then there are several slaves. So it is based upon the concept of master and slave. Master is going to ask for the data and slaves are going to give the data. That's it. So it is the most simplest form of protocol or the communication protocol that we have studied, that we know. So and it is still in use, right? Then we have got the CAN bus, that is Modbus was used in industrial automation and CAN bus was used in automotive standards, that all the auto vehicles, or this was emerged for automotive industry, and this was also around 1980s. It was developed around 1980s when the cars were initially, they were computerized, right? So it was developed at that point of time. So here we use the canvas, and then again, in these two protocols, security, safety, that was not the important point that we considered. The important point was how the various devices are going to communicate with each other. The third one was military grade, that is MIL standard 1553. So this was developed keeping the military standards, that was for aerospace and defense applications. Now, since aerospace and defense application, they cannot afford failures. So the important trait that was considered during this protocol was reliability, that there should not be any failure. So these are the three communication protocols which are used in CPS. One is Modbus, which is basically used for industry automation, CAN bus, which is used for automotive industry, and military standard that is used for defense applications. So let's dive more deeper into it and see how they are working. So as I've already told you, Modbus, it is one of the oldest industrial communication protocol, and it is based upon a very simple concept of master and slave. There is one master, usually an operator, usually a SCADA system, and then there are several slaves, like, you have several sensors, you have valves, you have PLCs in industry, and then master simply asks the question and then the slave replies, right? So again, as I've already told you, since it was an older system at that point of time, security was not so important. The important thing was like communication. That is why, attackers can sometimes inject fake commands in industries like water plants or nuclear plants. So you must have heard of, that famous attack, that is Stuxnet attack in Iran, nuclear attack, nuclear plant by Israel. So that is also because, Iranian nuclear facility used this Modbus and there was no security implemented over there. So that is why Israel was able to do that particular attack over there. So, Modbus is infamously known for that. So the next one is canvas, right? So again, we have already touched upon this. This is automotive industry. This is for automotive industry, and this is CAN stands for Controller Area Network. So this is the protocol. This was also in place since 1980s. And it is initially it was made for cars when cars were initially computerized, but now it is used beyond cars in industrial machinery. It is used in medical devices. It is used for aerospace. It is used for marine systems also. So basically, how it works, that suppose the CAN bus, that is the nervous system of the vehicle, and all the ECUs, right? So ECUs stands for electronic control units, like the CAN nodes. ECUs are, your sensors, the nodes which are actually going to give you the data. So they are the various part of that bus, and they are connected through that bus, and then they pass on the information. Your Modbus, it was master slave. Your CAN bus, it is peer to peer, right? So this is for basically peer to peer communication. There is no master. So there is a common bus where various ECU units are connected and they can actually communicate with each other, right? For example, if you want to give example, for example, if you press the brake pedal, then the signal through that CAN bus will be given to engine, will be given to the braking modules. It will be given to, airbags if they need to be deployed. So that is how it is going to work. The important trait of this canvas is that it is very, very fast, it is very reliable, and it can be used for real-time systems. So the important question that we understand over here is, in CAN bus, any ECU, any electronic control unit can actually transmit the information. They can actually broadcast the data, and all the other will listen to that. So how do we avoid the collisions in this case? How do we avoid the collisions of packets in this case? That is through the process of arbitration. So arbitration means every CAN message has got an identifier. So if two ECU, they are transmitting simultaneously, then the one with the lower identifier, that is going to win, and other will back off, and then they're going to retry again. And this particular thing, this is known as bus arbitration. All right. So if we talk about this, so this is a simple example which I was telling you. Then there is a bus. So in this we have got ECUs. ECUs, we know these are the electronic control units, any kind of nodes which are actually the part of your system, which is sensors, brakes, steering, temperature, which will actually give the information. So those are called ECU. A modern car can have around 70 plus ECU, which will be sharing the information through this bus. Right, so they can prepare and they can broadcast the information, they can broadcast the data, which will be listened to every ECU on the network. And so that in order to avoid collision, we use the arbitration. Arbitration is, the only the lowest most identifier that is going to win, and other are going to retry it again. Right, and this is your peer-to-peer network, contrast to your Modbus, which was master slave, right? So if you think about this ECU, the ECU has got three parts. The first one is microcontroller, which you all know, that is the brain of the system, the brain of the node, which actually decide that when to do something, right? And then is the CAN controller, which ensure that the messages, they follow particular rules, like whether the message is valid or not, and CAN transceiver that is going to send and receive the electrical signal, right? That actually convert your digital messages into voltage messages on the wire, right? So next, the third one that we have already listened to, that is Modbus is done, CAN bus is done. The third one was for your defense. That is MIL STD, Military Standard 1553. And here it is basically a single bus controller which actually initiate all the data exchanges with the remote terminals, right? So how it works in two phases. One is your command phase, and second one is your response phase. Command phase is, nothing is going to happen till your bus controller actually instructs the instruction. So this is basically a command and response. The bus controller actually gives the command, and the rest of the network nodes, they are going to respond to that, right? So this is how it actually works. Every packet has got their timing, and the bus is going to listen to that communication. So again, the problem here is since it was developed around in 1980s, so then at that point of time, cyber attacks were not that common. So in that case, security is still a challenge in this case. But now what we do is, on the top of that, we actually add certain cyber security, we add certain encryption, we add authentication, and then still we are using this, right? So three type of communications can happen over here. If you look over here, the first one is uh, controller to RT transfer, right? So here what is going to happen? Initially, the BC is going to send a command that, okay, I want to receive, right? And then the RT that is going to actually respond with the status word that, okay, I am RT number this, and I acknowledge this, I am going to ready to receive, right? And then the BC is going to transmit the word and RC is going to receive, right? So the first communication is between BC and RT, where BC is actually sending the data and RT has to receive the data. So in this, how the communication is going to happen. Initially, the BC is going to send a command word to any particular RT. It is going to send the identifier that, okay, RT number 8, I am going to send the data, right? And then the RT number 8 is going to respond back and it says that, okay, I am RT number 8 and I'm ready to receive the data. So one, it gets this thing and then the BC is going to send the data actually. Now the second kind of communication is RT to BC transfer. Here the actually BC wants to read something that RT has to transmit, right? So BC sends again a command word that, okay, RT number this, please transmit the data, right? So here RT is going to respond back that, okay, I am RT number this, I am going to transmit the data. And then it is actually transmits the data also. So once the data is received by BC, so that is all, right? So the first two communication is between BC and the RT. Whether the BC wants to transmit the data or whether the BC wants to receive the data, right? In both the cases, I've already told you the communication is started from BC only. Whether BC wants to send the data, whether BC wants to receive the data. Now, the third communication here, you have to understand that is where we have RT to RT transfer, right? Where the, suppose there are two main VCs and they want to initially communicate the data. Now, here what is going to happen is, since we have already discussed upon this, this is a master-slave communication. The communication between RTs, that cannot happen directly. So RT to RT transfer cannot happen directly. In that case, what is going to happen over here is BC is going to, suppose RT8 and RT12, they want to communicate with each other. Now, what is going to happen here is BC is going to give a communication to RT8 that we need data on this thing. Okay, and then it is going to send the data to BC, and then BC is going to send the data to RT12. So this is how RT8 and RT12 are going to communicate with each other, right? So all the three communications are happening through the base controller. I hope we are clear about, we are okay about this thing. So data exchange sequences, we have understood that there are three kind of data exchange sequences. First, we have understood that this is the from controller to RT, when the controller want to receive something. Second one is when the controller actually want to send something. Third one is, when the controllers actually want to communicate. So that is all about the communication protocols. Is there anything that you want to ask from here? Otherwise, we'll move to the second topic. Is anything that you need to ask? You can ask me. Otherwise, I'm going to move to the network security protocols. Okay, fine. So I assume that we are clear about this. So as I've already told you that when the communication protocols were developed, so there at that point of time, security was not a big issue at that point of time. That time, communication was main challenge which we were facing upon. So in communication, what we had discussed is that how various devices they are going to talk to each other, right? But these were developed in those era in which security was not major concern. But nowadays security is major challenge, right? We have got cyber attacks every day. So we have to consider these security protocols, right? So security protocols basically ensure that the data which is sent across is secure and it is reaching the right person and it is not altered, right? So important keywords that we consider over here is encryption, authentication, and integrity. All right. So the first one protocol which is used in CPS is TLS, the newer version of SSL. You must have all have heard of SSL certificates. So this is SSL is secure socket layer. So TLS, that is the transport layer security protocol. So this is the new name of SSL. So SSL was created in 1990s. It was created by NetStar. And TLS, it's the modern standardized version of that. So basically, it does the three things. One is encryption, that is, it encrypts the data between client and server. Second one is authentication. It authenticates your server to client and client to server. And then is data integrity. It prevents the tampering of the data, right? And it also prevents the eavesdropping, that is confidentiality. So these are the all important things that it is based upon. Second one is your IPsec, that is Internet Protocol Security. So it again, like your Internet Protocol, it operates on the network layer, while your TLS, it operates on the transport layer, right? So IPsec, it operates at IP layer. TLS, it operates at the transport layer. So what it does, again, it does the encryption of IP packets. And then also it authenticates source and destination. The important thing over here is that it also prevents the packet replay attacks. Now, what do we understand by packet replay attack? Anyone in the audience who would have heard about packet replay attack? Can somebody discuss? Throw some light on packet replay attack. Very famous term. Anyone? Anyone from the audience would like to tell us about anything about the attack?
Ma'am, can you please just repeat the question, what we're asking?
Yeah. So we right now we are at IPsec, right, Mala?
Yes, ma'am.
So here what we are talking of security at the IP layer. Okay. So
Okay.
what I have just discussed is that, okay, IPsec protocol, that is Internet Protocol Security Protocol, it actually protects the communication at IP level. So
Right,
it
ma'am.
is known for encryption, it is known for authentication, and it is known for preventing packet replay attack. So
Right.
packet replay attack. So I was just asking, so have you heard of this term? If you have heard of this term, can
Yes,
any
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. A packet replay means the same packet is duplicated and it is sent again and again to the same source, between source and destination.
then how does it affect?
Because we will eventually end up getting duplicate data.
And how it is, because there is a subtle difference between you, what you are saying is absolutely correct, but I just want to, ask you a little more because there is a difference between packet replay attack and DDoS attack.
Yes, ma'am. In DDoS attack, actually multiple bots or you can say fake users try to send requests to the server, and as the servers accept socket has limited number of requests, 20. One socket can take 20 requests. So in that case, the legitimate request will not be answered by the server because it already has reached the upper limit of request access.
Excellent answer, Dr. Mala. And what is the difference between DOS and this packet replay?
In packet replay, because we are sending the same packet again and again. But in DDoS or DOS or DDoS attack, requests are sent from multiple different users, and here the same user will be sending the same packet.
Okay, very good answer, very good answer. But I would like to add a little more if you allow. So
Yeah.
thank you for answering, Dr. Manu. So she has, dear participant, she has answered it really well. So what happens in packet replay attack? This is kind of a cyber attack where an attacker actually intercepts valid data packets. It takes your valid data pack, which was previously transmitted between two parties. Suppose there was already a communication between me and my husband has asked for certain money, right? He has asked for 10,000 money. Now, the same kind of packet will be resent, it will be replayed. the attacker does not alter the content. It actually resends the captured packet so that the receiver, so that I know that, okay, this is how he writes, and he has asked me for the same money like few days back also, so that he's asking me again. So I think that, okay, this particular message, this is legitimate, this is fresh communication, right? So as a receiver, I feel that, okay, this is a correct packet from my husband, but actually that packet was replayed, right? So this is how a receiver can perform unauthorized action based upon the repeated data, like executing the command again or granting the access multiple times. So this is called the packet replay attack. Here it is going to capture the particular packet, and then it is going to send the exact same packet to the same receiver without altering. It is going to replay that. And again, the problem here is, it actually, send the encrypted data again. So that is why we have to, use certain kind of protection here. Like we can add sequence number, we can add, most importantly, is the timestamp, right? So when was the actual message sent and when was the replay message? So these are the certain security features which was added by IPsec. So that, we can avoid these kind of cryptographic attacks, so that can detect and that can discard repeated packets or your out of order packet, so that each message can be processed only once and within the expected time frame, right? Next, what we have written over here is we provide VPN. VPN stands for virtual private network, you all know. So we will be able to create virtual private network kind of a security for industrial systems. We all know that when there is a certain secure data, for example, there are two refineries, they have got their own network, they have got their own secure data. They do not want to share the data on internet. So instead of sending the unencrypted data on the net, they actually develop their own tunnel. And from that IPsec tunnel, they'll be able to send the packets across, right? So that was this. Now, the third one is, MQTT, very, very famous. That is message queuing telemetry transport. This is known for lightweight messaging protocol, and this was designed for IoT and sensor network. Again, it is based upon your publish subscribe model, right? So here the devices actually publish the data, and other devices which are subscribed to that topic, they will be getting that data. And then there is a broker which is actually going to mediate the communication. And when we are adding the TLS over it adds the security, right? So when I'm saying that, okay, MQTT we already know, but when we say that, okay, MQTT with TLS, that means that we have added the transport layer security. And when we are saying that, okay, we have added the transport layer security, that means the data that is going to be sent across, that will be encrypted. So that is another way of saying, right? So whenever the messages will be sent across, that will be encrypted, authenticated, and it will be integrated, right? So these are the three protocols that we'll be doing for network security, right? So as we have already touched upon transport layer security, that is a cryptographic protocol that is designed to provide the security at transport layer, right? So this is another name of your SSL, that is secure socket layer. This ensures that no third party can eavesdrop on or tamper with any messages that is transmitted between your client and server. It is based upon three important aspects. We started from integrity. Integrity is that from sender to receiver, there is no undesired modification. Authentication, that the sender and receiver should be authenticated. Confidentiality, only the authorized user can actually access. So if you look over here, so we can say that here, if you look over the layers, so TLS layer, this sits between your application layer and transport layer, right? It takes the data from the transport layer, it adds its own headers, and then it gives to the application layer, right? So you know that in application layer where your applications actually work, right? Transport layer is, where we have the data. And TLS layer is, it is going to actually encrypt that data. It is going to authenticate the server. It is going to authenticate the client, and then it is going to ensure the data integrity. So whenever we are saying that, okay, please add SSL certificate. So that is happening at your TLS layer, right? Okay. So if you look over the protocol stack over here, so in this protocol stack, we are already aware that we are already aware of HTTP, we are already aware of TCP, we are already aware of IP, right? So these are the four things that we need to know. Handshake protocol, in the next slide, we are going to understand that. What is this change cipher spec protocol? This is just 1 byte message. This simply says that, okay, change the state of this particular message from pending to active, right? So this simple protocol, this is just for changing the state of that particular handshake from pending to active, right? Alert protocol, this is for, sending the warnings or sending the alert messages, right? So these two are for these things. This is for changing this specification from pending to active. This is for sending across the warnings or fatal alerts. Next, if you talk about the handshake, how handshake happens. So, this happens in 4 phases, right? Initially, like this is basically two people who are actually agreeing on a secret language before talking, right? So they say that, okay, this is how we are going to talk, right? So during the handshake, connection is established. During the handshake, these certificates are exchanged. During the handshake, this is decided that, okay, which encryption algorithm we are going to use. During the handshake, we are going to decide that, okay, what is going to be our secret key for this entire communication, right? So this handshake protocol is actually the reason that you will be ensuring your authentication. You are ensuring that your message is properly encrypted, right? So what happens is initially the client says hello to the server and server responds back. So the first one is your connection is established by sending a simple hello message, right? In the second phase, the server is authenticated. Server sends its certificate server request and client certificate server key exchange, right? So this is going to be the key for that. And the client actually sends its certificate and it sends its key. And then they both agree to that and then the handshake is over, right? So once the handshake is done, then the secure communication is going to start, right? So this is simple handshake protocol in order to establish the communication between two parties. Next is, okay. So when I'm saying that TLS ensures 3 things, right? When we started that, okay, integrity, we started authentication, and we started the confidentiality, right? So can somebody tell me that during the handshake, which 3 aspects are handled? Which 2 aspects or which single aspect, which aspect is handled during the handshake? Whether you think integrity is handled here, whether you think authentication is handled here, whether you think confidentiality is handled here.
I
Authentication.
guess it is authentication that we handle during handshake.
One, you said authentication. That is absolutely correct. Mala, what was the second thing that you told?
Because during a handshake, both the parties share their information with each other. Means that the sender will be sending its information, and it will be verified by the server. If the server is finds it okay, then it will respond back.
Right. So, do you think that all the 3 aspects are handled over here?
Ma'am, actually, what I feel, all the 3 aspects are entwined with each other. But obviously, integrity will be maintained, because if integrity is not maintained, then authentication will not be established, or it won't be authenticated properly. So,
Okay.
all 3 would be done.
Okay, fine. Very good. So here I would like to add more to what Dr. Mala has told us. Authentication is quite clear to us that authentication is handled because initially the sender and server, they have authenticated themselves by sending the certificates. And secondly, I've already told you that the key is also exchanged, that okay, this is going to be my cryptographic key through which my messages will be, encrypted. Right. So that means that, okay, the confidentiality is also handled, that, okay, yes, this is only I will be able to receive the data, only I'll be able to send the data, right? No unauthorized access is possible. Now, the important thing over here, which is missing in handshake protocol, is that no undesired modification. That how are we going to stop the modification? That is one thing that we need to understand over here. So we'll go to our third slide related to that. That is okay. That is my SSL record protocol. This is the one, right? So your SSL record protocol is going to see that whether undesired modification is happening or not, right? So regarding this, we know handshake is just to ensure that the communication is between the right entities and the communication is encrypted. Change for specification protocol, this is a very simple thing. This is just to, change the states. Alert is to send the alerts. And this SSL record protocol, this is how, what we are going to do over here is, suppose this is your data, right? And then this data is going to be fragmented into 16 KB chunks. For example, the input is, okay, read temperature sensor number this, okay, get me the data from this node, okay, get me the alarm state of this particular alarm, right? So that data which we receive, that is going to be fragmented into 16 KB chunks. So if the data is large enough, then we are going to fragment it. If the data is smaller enough, then we don't need to fragment it. And then we need to compress the data, right? The compression is also optional. If you want to compress, you can compress, or otherwise you cannot compress. Now what is happening? After your compression, we are going to add the message authentication code, right? So we are going to compute our code. We are going to add the sequence number. We are going to add our shared key. So here what is happening in your, we will be having your data. We'll be having the sequence number of that data. We'll be adding our shared key, right? So now the output data is what? Data plus your map, right? So now your data has become from 16 to it has become 32 bytes. Now after that, the data is encrypted. Okay. After adding the message authentication code, after adding your MAC, now we are encrypting the data. Now we are sending our encrypted data, and now we are going to add our header, and then we are going to change it, we are going to give it to our application layer, right? So is this okay? Is this clear? Now what is happening over here is, now here the encryption is being done. Okay. So is this clear? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, very much clear.
Very much, no? So the difference here is, what is happening is, we are not actually encrypting your message. We are actually, what we are doing is, the important thing that you have to understand and remember always is that here what we are doing is, we are actually adding our MAC first, and then we are encrypting the data. So that means my data as well as my MAC key, both are encrypted. Okay, so whenever somebody wants to tamper with my data, it has to actually, find out the key for my message as also and for my MAC also. So that is how we are adding the integrity to my protocol. So that is how we are adding these three things, three aspects to our PLS, all the three aspects. So integrity is, added through this SSL, right? So by macking before the encryption, the MAC is also encrypted. So that is why we are going to avoid the tampering in this case. So that is the beauty of this protocol. I hope this is clear to you. So now we are going to move to our next protocol. That is your IP security protocol, right? So IPsec, we all know it works at the network layer. That means it is going to protect every packet, right? So that means if you imagine that, okay, the network is a highway, so IPsec is going to protect each and every car traveling on it. And again, it provides you these three things, that is data tampering, fake identity, your replay attack, replaying old attacks. So it is going to prevent all these things. And it ensure encryption. It uses encryption so that only the intended recipient can read the data. It ensure the integrity. So it uses the hash function basically, so that the data cannot be modified, corrupted, tampered with. And then it uses your authentication also, so the identities are verified properly before sending the data. So this is going to actually prevent your impersonation attack. And we have already discussed upon, replay protection. We have already discussed upon this. So these are the main important security features of IPsec protocol. Okay. So now very, very important discussion of this IPsec also. It works in two modes. One is your transport mode and second one is your tunnel mode, right? So, one second. No? Here we have. So IPsec, first I'll make you understand this thing, what is happening over here, and then we are going to discuss this, then that will become very easy. So this is my original, IP packet. That is, I have got IP header, TCP header and data. Now in this case, what is going to happen over here is, in transport mode, so this is going to add the header over here, right? But in tunnel mode, what is happening over here is, we have got this original IP packet. It has added its own header. After adding its own header, then it is going to add its new IP. Now I'll give you a very, very simple example and then you'll be able to understand. Suppose this is my letter, right? I have, this is my packet, this is my letter or whatever. So here what is happening is, the letter is there. Okay, I have encrypted the letter and then I am going to send it to a particular recipient. Okay, the encrypted letter is going to send to the recipient. The recipient name is at the top of it. I can read the recipient name. But now here in tunnel mode, what is happening is, the letter is there, the recipient is also there, and both are encrypted. And that is again sent into another envelope, and that envelope is now sent to the destination. So here in transport mode, only the data is being encrypted and then it is sent. Now here what is happening is, data plus the header, both are encrypted and then it is being sent, right? So that is the difference between transport mode and the tunnel mode. In transport mode, we protect only the payload of the IP packet, and in tunnel mode, we protect the entire packet. That means tunnel mode is what? Putting a letter inside the envelope so that no one even sees the address also, right? So transport mode is sealing only the message, right? So that is the main important thing that we have to understand. It works in two different modes. So I have taken it from this particular link. I was reading it. It was very interesting. So I have taken the image of this. So transport mode, it happens from host to host, whereas tunnel mode, it happens from network to network. And it can also happen from host to host. This I've already told you, it encrypts only the payload, right? So that is why it preserves the IP header. It encrypts the entire IP packet. It adds its new IP header also. So since it encrypts only the payload, so that is why we say that this is lower security. That is why it is used for host and host communication, whereas tunnel mode, it offers you higher security. That is why it is used for network to network communication. Since it adds an additional header over here, so there it is lower overhead, there it is going to be higher overhead, right? So this is used for, this is not that strong enough, but this is very, very strong. So it can be used for NAT compatibility, since it can be used for NAT traversal also. So this is all about your transport mode as well as the tunnel mode. So that is all about your network security protocols also. So till now, Our PPT second phase is also over. Initially, we have studied about the communication protocols. In communication protocols, we have just understood that, okay, these were the communication protocols that were used, but in communication protocols, there was lack of security. So that is why security was added on the top of that. So after that, we have studied about the various security protocols that are used in CPS. Now we are going to understand to our third phase of PPT, that is the various standards. So, can anyone tell me that what exactly is the difference between protocol and a standard? So, anyone, just what is in your mind?
Standard is the technical term or technology standards. So for example, 2G, 3G, 5G, these are the standards. IEEE 802.3, etc. These are the standards. So I can say Wi-Fi is market name or for wireless standard. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And ma'am, can you just throw some light on what is the difference between protocol and a standard?
protocol is a set of rules. If it is based on OSI layered architecture, so what are the rules and regulations to achieve those standards? In the sense, let's say 5G or 3G is using, let's say, CDMA for physical layer. So there are rules. Let's say some wired communication they are using RS-232. So they are using which kind of protocol? So IP will be a protocol and standard will be like let's say 3G or 5G for wireless if it is a wired one, so that is the standard one.
Very good answer, Dr. Shivani. Very good answer. So
Thank you.
basically, protocols tells us that, okay, how various devices are going to talk with each other, right? And whereas standards, they are going to tell industry that, okay, how to be safe, how to be reliable, how to ensure these all aspects, right? So standards, they actually ensure that systems don't fail. They are secure. They behave predictably. They work very well with other systems, right? For example, I'll give you a very, very simple example over here. So that the standard is that, okay, every car needs to be secure. There has to be airbags. There has to be belt, right? Seat belts. Now, how those seat belts will be deployed, that comes under protocol. Standard is that, okay, every car has to have a seat belt, right? So that the everyone is secure while traveling in the car. So that is your standard, right? Standard is going to tell that, okay, how are we going to make our communication more secure, more reliable, more predictable, lesser failures, right? So protocols are actually, they are going to tell that, okay, this is how the communication is going to happen. This is how we are going to ensure security, right? So very good answer, Dr. Shivani. So we are going to move ahead with the standards. So the first standard is that is being used is IEC 62443. That is the Industrial Cybersecurity Standard. And this is the most widely used industrial cybersecurity standard. It tells how to protect your sensor nodes, how to protect your CPS environment, right? So we have got a refinery, we have got hundred of machines, sensors, PLC. So it actually tells you that, okay, you need to have maximum number of these devices. How are you going to divide your network, right? So network segmentation is going to tell you what is going to be the architecture of your system. How are you going to control the access of your system? How are you going to secure your PLCs? How are you going to develop the safe softwares, right? So these are used for your industrial standards, ICs, SCADA, smart manufacturing, oil and gas power plants. So this is basically, there is another name for this. This is cyber security Bible for industries. So this is quite widely used, most widely used industrial cybersecurity standard over here, right? So the next one is NIST CPS framework. So this gives a complete blueprint of to build the trustworthy CPS. Trustworthiness, when we say that trustworthiness, so the system is reliable, the system is safe, the system is predictable, the system is timely, the system is trustworthiness. So these all things come under NIST CPS framework, that is NIST CPA 1500 series, and it was created by the US National Institute of Standards and Technologies. From there, the name is NIST. So there are several For example, if you're working in a smart grid, right? If the timing is on, right? Then within a few milliseconds, the entire grid can collapse, right? So these are the issues that NIST actually captures, and it ensures that, okay, these are the various things that need to be incorporated in a system so that there is no failure, the system is secure and reliable. So the third one, the last one that is the information security standard. So this is used where data and communication, where we talk about the data. That is very, very important, right? So this standard is not just for CPS, but for any organization which is actually handling the sensitive data. So this is basically for protecting your cyber layer, right? So again, it ensures what access control, incident handling, security policies, risk management. So it handles everything, right? So that attacker cannot, actually tamper your data. It cannot actually steal the data. It cannot manipulate the devices. So these are the things that that this particular standard ensures. So that is it. Thank you so much. And if there is any question, you can ask me. And there is one thing that I actually missed upon. I'll just recall. So when we were talking about Modbus, the one of the most famous thing about Modbus is that it's interoperability. So if a particular vendor is using Modbus, it can communicate with any other vendor. It can have a inter-vendor communication. So that is the most important and most beautiful thing of Modbus, that it allows the interoperability between different vendors. So that's it. Okay, so that is all from my side. If anything else that you want to ask, you can let me know.
Participants, if you have any query, kindly ask.
Ma'am, mind if I you to just elaborate the use of or significance of NAT in security purpose?
Can you repeat your question? I couldn't hear.
I wanted to know that can you just elaborate or briefly the usage of NAT in security, cyber
Yes.
security?
Very good question. I'll just come to it. So, can you see my slides over here?
No, ma'am, it's not visible actually.
Okay. So, here it is, right? So, NAT, it basically stands for Network Address Translation, right? So, basically, what it happens, it actually hides your IP address of the devices behind a single public IP address, right? That means from outside the network, individual private IPs they are not visible to us, right? They are not directly reachable. For example, in an entire network, we have got several devices over there. So they have got their individual IP addresses. So out of in NAT translation, what happens is that, okay, in individual IP addresses, we add an additional address over here, that is your outer address, so that the individual elements are not visible. So basically, it helps you to control your inbound traffic by allowing only the responses to the authorized outbound request only. That means there are no unsolicited connections from the external sources. So this is how the filtering happens. Very, very simple example I always give, that we have got a building. So there is a guard sitting outside, right? So that guard actually stops anyone outside to come in individual buildings. So that is the example of the NAT here. So this is a beautiful concept where we are actually masking your internal addressing, and we are going to limit the direct access of any unauthorized intruder into the system. So that means your malicious actors, they will not be able to directly access the internal devices. So that is that.
So, ma'am, the purpose is solved by proxy server also, right?
Yes.
So, which one is better? We're using NAT or using proxy server?
So it all depends upon, your application to application. So what applications are you using? So if you're using, like your devices which you need lightweight protocols. In lightweight protocols, what we use is NAT, right? Where NAT is inbuilt in these protocols. But if you're using, your websites and all these things where you don't need to have a lightweight protocol, in those cases we are using your proxy servers.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So that is actually, ma'am, how we decide. Whenever we talk about CPS, whenever we talk about cyber physical systems, we have to understand that we are talking about the security and physical communication of devices which are very small in nature. So the protocols have to be lightweight. So the challenge here is, the fast communication, that is the real-time communication. And secondly, the protocol has to be lightweight because we are not having much of the powers with us. So that is how we decide that, okay, which one we are going to use over here.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any other query, participant? You can put your query in chat box also. Nonita ma'am, I think there is no query. Okay.
So I guess we should conclude now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights into the CPS protocols and standard, ma'am. You explained security protocols in detail, which is really very much informative and engaging. And I think it is helpful for all the participants. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Participants, I am sharing feedback link in chat box. Kindly fill it. We'll start second session within 10 minutes. Okay. Be present in the link.
Thank
Nonita
you.
ma'am, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, ma'am. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, we'll start within 5 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Ma'am, actually, we didn't receive the PPT of yesterday's presentations. If you can just share it in the group, that would be very beneficial for us.
Ma'am, what we are doing now, we are collecting all the PPTs from all speakers at the end of this FDP, and we are going to share that drive link with each one of you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. You will get all the PPTs after this FDP.
Sure.
Session 1 feedback link is posted in chat box. I request all the participants to please fill the feedback for session 3. Shiva ma'am, can we start with next session?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. For session 4, we are having Advocate Dr. Sylvain D'Costa. He is a partner and head trademark and copyright practice at AM Legal Associate. Advocate Dr. Sylvain D'Costa has a vast experience in the field of intellectual property rights, including but not limited to intellectual property rights, prosecution, litigation, including but not limited to handling contentious and non-contentious matters for the firm before the trademark registry, copyright office, district and high courts, drafting and negotiating commercial contracts, technology licensing, commercialization of technology, etc. Apart from this, Advocate Dr. Sylvain D'Costa is actively involved in AM Legal Associates patent related matters pertaining to post and pre-grant oppositions, patent infringement, design infringement. Academically, he holds a doctorate in law from Bharati Vidyapeeth, Pune, master's degree from the prestigious and premier Savitribai Phule, Pune University, and bachelor's degree in law from Mumbai University, India. Advocate Sylvain was featured as top 50 legal falcon in the year 2022. I welcome sir, and please continue with the session.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, okay. So can I share my screen, please?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Yeah. Is my full screen visible or?
No, sir, please do it slideshow.
Yeah, that's what I've done, but I don't know what's on.
Sir, full screen is not visible.
Yes, yes.
You can share the entire screen, so it will be visible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Just a minute. I'll just. Yeah. So yes, good evening, everyone. I'm here to speak on the cyber physical systems, ethics, and what are the legal aspects. So I'm going to go in detail with regards to the entire prospect of what is cyber physical system, what are the ethics, what are the legal aspects with regards to its compliance, its statutory provisions, the new DPDP rules that have been published recently in 2025. So I'm just starting my thing with what is an introduction and what is the definition, the examples and the relevance to the digital India. So as you all know, cyber physical systems, or we call it technology, where a software does not remain inside a laptop or a server, it directly controls the physical world. Now this happens whenever there is a hardware, software, networks, and real-time data that is involved to interact or operate a physical system, which we call it as a cyber physical system. Now there are various examples in our day-to-day life, which fall from smart meters in our homes to autonomous vehicles, infusion papers, robotics, etc. Now, what is the relevance of CPS to its digital India scenario? Now, under the Digital India Smart Cities missions make India the new national cybersecurity strategy expert, and CPS forms as the backbone of the automation and the national infrastructure that we talk about when it comes to CPS. Now, it is not just about technology, it is backed with legal relevance and ethics that play an important role when we talk about CPS. Now, CPS, there are various things that we can talk about it when CPS requires, what is the integrated, what is the understanding of the engineering, what it comes, or what is the aspect of ethics that is to be followed, what is exactly cybersecurity and its consonance with law. So this session will help you understand how CPS works, what ethical question it raises, and what is the India's legal framework that is required for the CPS development. Now, the CPS structure. Now, once we understand what is CPS, now the next important is how does the cyber security system actually work? What is the architecture? Now, architecture means it constantly senses the environment. There is computes decisions and it acts physically. It's an important factor. Now, acts physically is a very important factor here. Now, let's start with first thing is the sensor. Now, sensor is one thing which collects real-time data such as location, your heart rate, voltage. Now, heart rate, because we are living in a age where everyone wears a smartwatch and everything. So this data is sent to the embedded controllers. For example, an engine control unit in a vehicle or a microcontroller in a medical device. Now, these controllers actually run on algorithms. Now, sometimes there is simple logic, sometimes complex based on what type of model, AI, ML, and this also now this actuators send. Sorry, this sensors then collect the actuators and then they physically move into a robotic arm. Now, this is just an example. Now, for example, there is again a Bluetooth CAN bus in vehicle or even a 5G. Now, there are very modern CPMs can also use edge computing or low latency decisions and cloud analytics. So this architecture basically is very critical because every layer represents a potential attack surface and every attack has a physical consequence that I'll talk about in the later stage. Now, for example, hacking a sensor can lead to wrong data, which may lead to wrong actions. And then understanding how the CPH architecture helps us evaluate the ethical concerns, the safety risk, compliance requirements, and the legal liability, which we'll explore in the upcoming slide. Because legal liability is a very important factor that we are going to talk about. Now, cybersecurity basis. What are the bases for a cyber security? First and utmost is the confidentiality. Second is the integrity, and third is availability. Now, confidentiality because you or CPS contains or takes a lot of data from its users, so it is very, very important for the data to remain confidential. Now, in availability becomes even more critical. Now, integrity is because when you have the confidentiality, you will then imply and that will integrate with your cybersecurity. Now, availability. Now, availability becomes even more critical because machines like ventilators, there are various machines which are sometimes out of the control or backend problems. So, this cybersecurity, there are three bases, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, the second thing, what are the core ethical principles that we are talking about? Now, accountability. Who is responsible when CPS makes or influences decision? What is the transparency? Like users must understand how it behaves and why it makes decision. Fairness. Algorithms must avoid bias, discrimination, or unequal outcomes. So it should be fair. Safety and non-malicious. CPS will not cause any harm due to design flaws or misuse of the system. And privacy, an important factor because it is handling of personal and sensitive data that is collected by CPS. Now, these are the ethical considerations or the core ethical principles when it comes to CPS. Now, the legal framework. Now, CPS is such an vast thing because it is not governed by a single law. There are different laws that come into picture when someone feels or thinks about CPS. First and the foremost important is the IT Act 2000. Then there are certain directions in 2022. And then there is the Digital Protection Data Protection Act 2023 and the rules that have been published now in 2025. Now, important aspects or important sections of the IT Act first. Now, Section 43 talks about unauthorized access, system extraction, and damage to to the systems, because if there is unauthorized access, it might be used in a negative way, which will have an impact. So Section 66 talks about computer-related offenses. Now, this being a very IT-related system, there are criminal liabilities when it comes to the Information Technology Act. Now, Section 66F particularly talks about cyber terrorism, which applies to critical CPS because it is used in modern terrorism. Now, there are different guidelines because there are different systems which act as an intermediary. So, what are the guidelines that an intermediary has to follow, and what are the obligations that the intermediary has to do if in case there is any complaint with regards to breach of data by unauthorized users of the CPS. Now, second and most important is the certain directions passed in 2022, which has given a mandatory 6-hour breach reporting. Like, you have to mandatorily report it. Now, there is retention. You will have to retain the log for 180 days. Then there is data localization for certain logs. There is mandatory KYC for cloud and VPS services, and this heavily applies to CPS operators and vendors. Third, Digital Personal and Data Protection Act 2023. Now, why important? Because this is content-based data processing. There are various duties of a data fiduciaries, for example, CPS manufacturers and operators. Then there are rights of data principals. Now, there are very humongous penalties. As you can see, there are violations to which you can be charged or penalized for up to 250 crores. Now, why? Because there are relevant IoTs and CPS collecting personal data that belongs to your n number of users that use the system. Now, fourth, and the most important is the Bharatiya Saksha Adhiman 2023, which is the new Evidence Act for the country. Now, this is the act which governs how digital evidence must be maintained, stored, and represented if you have to take any legal action with regards to non-authorized or immature use of your data. Now, this is critical when you are investigating CPS failures or accidents, but most importantly, when there is a cyber attack. Finally, now India has many, you say, sector-specific regulations from automotive or from different numbers. So now this are because rules are for digital evidence. Then there is how a chain of custody requirements, like how the evidence has to be digitized, because there is certain rules that have been laid down in the act. If you need to do that digital evidence admissible in court of law, then there is crucial CPS incident forensics, as I said. Then there is sector-specific legal obligations. For example, BI standards for IoT. Then there are automotive regulations as AIS, ARAI. Then there are medical device rules 2017, and also power grid cybersecurity guidelines that feature all the legal framework for CPS. Now, the IT Act, as we said, will give you a detailed thing of how there is a liability if there is unauthorized access, data extraction. Then there is also things where malware attacks happens, like damaging network resources or networks. Then firmware tampering, manipulating sensor data, interfering with the control systems of the CPS. And 66, as I said, will give you a criminal liability which covers offenses done dishonestly or fraudulently. Then there is accessing control systems and so on. Now, this is another what I was talking about, 66F. That is because all the CPSs are nowadays used in terrorism, which we call is that cyber terrorism. There is a very much impact on critical infrastructure. That is, there are the infrastructure can be harmed if it is used for cyber terrorism. There is a threat to national security. Then there is public safety that is involved. Now, public safety, why? Because if there is any breach or if there is any terrorism, the security of public is at question. That is why it gives punishment in the form of life imprisonment, and most relevant for CPC systems used by government. Now, life imprisonment, because it is considered as one of the harsh imprisonments in India. So this is governed under the life imprisonment. Now, again, section 72 and 72A talks about breach of confidentiality. If there is any breach of any confidential data or proprietary information that is belonging to the CPS owner, then he can take action if illegal disclosures of data are collected by CPS, if there is misuse of personal or sensitive data. Now, this is relevant in the IoT devices, connected cars, because we collect a lot of data in respect to the personal or sensitive data, which is very important. Now, intermediary rules, as I said, an intermediary has to have a lot of compliances with regards to maintaining security safeguards, for example, maintaining the data security of whatever he collects as an intermediary. If there is any breach, it is his duty to report that breach and also to implement reasonable security practices as an intermediary, because as an intermediary he is not actually liable, but if he does not maintain security safeguards, if he does not report a breach, and if he does not implement security practices, then an intermediary is also held liable as that of an infringer or as that of an offender. Now, CPS devices that fall under the Data Act 2023, smart meters, as I said in my intro, smart grids, there are connected vehicles, there are telematics which are connected to your software, there are medical IoTs, wearables, monitor infusion pumps, there are smart home devices like CCTVs, there are smart home accessible devices where you can control your home from smart devices. Then there are industrial sensors which collect worker data. This CPS collecting personal or sensitive data becomes a data fiduciary as per the DPDP Act 2023, and this is also defined in the new 2025 rules. Now, what are the obligations of a data fiduciary? Now, as we know, data fiduciary is one who collects data. Now, he has to obtain free, informed, specific, and unambiguous consent. For example, if you visit any website, you have to click I agree. Now, that is the important thing. Now, what most of us do is we never go in the context and read what data they are acquiring. It is very important. Now, those are called your terms of use and your privacy policy. So it has to be read by each and every user, because once you click the I agree, it is your responsibility that you have read and understood the terms. Now I will talk with from the perspective of who's collecting the data, who's the data fiduciary. Now his obligations are to obtain free. Now unambiguous consent here is because there are a number of websites that collect your data by keeping the clauses very ambiguous. So it has to be the fiduciary's obligation to collect the data unambiguously in a very simple plain text. Second, privacy notice must be very clear and accessible. As I said, the privacy terms must define what data he is collecting, what data he can share in case there is any government or legal acumen to him, and what data cannot be shared or what data can be shared without the consent of the user or with the consent of the user. He should also have a process data for lawful purpose. As I said, the collection of data, the maintaining of data, and the sharing of data in cases or in circumstances which it regards. Second important thing is he should deploy reasonable security safeguards, like encryption of the data is important. He should also say on which server it is kept. Is it encrypted? It is not. If in case it is a court order, then is it readily available to give the data? Now, again, erase data when purpose is complete. Now, if for example, if there are some apps or some CPSs which collect data for a particular period, for example, say 1 year I take a subscription and after the 1 year I do not renew it. So he should erase the data when the purpose is complete. In this case, when my subscription is ended, I have given consent that I do not want to resubscribe, then it is the obligation of the data fiduciary to erase this data. Second, and most important, allow the users rights to access. If there is any problem, he should allow the access. If there is any correction in the data that he is initially provided, he should be given an access and a right to correct. And if not, there should also be a grievance redressal. Now, in most cases, there is a particular email ID that is given as in grievance redressal, that if in case you have any grievance, you please write to us on this. So, and that data, whatever grievances are come up, he should maintain a data of that grievances, and once that grievances are complete or as closed, then he should erase those data as requested. Now, what are the data principal rights? First, as I said, right to access, right to correction of inaccurate or outdated data, right to grievance redressal, right to consent withdrawal. Like, for example, it should give the user a right to withdraw his consent. Then right to data reassure. Then again, now where consent withdrawal comes, where he ceases to use, then he should give the user an important aspect that now you are not subscribing, we are erasing your data. So do you want us to withdraw or erase it completely? Now these are the main principal rights that we talk about. Now again, as I said, there are humongous penalties that are involved, like 250 crores for breach of obligations, 200 crores for failure to prevent data breach. And non-compliance may also lead to additional consequences under the IT Act that depends upon a case-to-case basis. Now, the digital rights and CPS. Now, this is a very high risk combination because here there is real-time personal data that is collected. There is continuous surveillance by way of sensors, cameras. There is health and biometric data that is captured. There is location and again mobility data that is given. Again, a silent data is collected by default settings, which requires strong privacy design policies. So your privacy policy should be very, very, very important, and it should be in line with the new rules. Then again, as I said, certain guidelines which gives a mandatory reporting guidelines, and then it gives a timeline of 6 hours, and then it always also tells about how the norms should be stored, the logging norms. Now, yes, this is the slide. So now again, the mandatory log retention for 180 days, it has to retain the log for 180 days, whatever is the data that is located on the services in India. Now this logs can be network logs, CPS controller logs, sensor actuator logs, access logs, basically all important logs that collect the data and keep it on the server or store it on the server. Now, mandatory KYC for cloud VPS hosting. If CPS uses cloud, then it should be doing a mandatory collection of KYC. Then it should help trace malicious actors if there is any malicious store that is coming in. And it should also prevent anonymous hosting of CPS command servers. This is also an important aspect when it comes to cloud, that is cloud or VPS hosting used in the CPCs. Now then there is time synchronization requirement. All CPS and servers systems must use Indian NTP servers. Then it should have accurate synchronized timestamps, vital for providing evidence, as I say, under the BSA, because digital evidence is admissible only if it is laid down in a particular thing that has been laid down in the act. Now again, the cybercrime punishments, as I said, and the digital evidence rules. Now, this is what counts as digital evidence when it comes to CPS, sensor logs and actuator command logs, all your PCL SNC system logs, your firmware audit trials. If you do audits time to time, you have to keep that data in so that that can be produced in the code as admissible. Then all your network packets and communication records, your CCTV footage, your server logs on the cloud and the edge, your access control logs, your user device authentication. Now, all this acts as a digital evidence in CPS. Now, what are the requirements for admissibility? As I said, now whatever digital evidence you have should be admissible in court, and the requirements for admissibility is it should have integrity, evidence must remain unaltered. Now, this can happen if you conduct the digital forensics that I will cover in the upcoming slides. So digital forensics is an important aspect where you can make your digital evidence valuable or admissible. That there should be a chain of custody, how your document as to a document how the collection is done to the presentation. So it should be documented. A video can be a best thing that can be proven as digital evidence, or it can be proven as admissible in court. Then again, hash values are required to prove the authenticity. Now hash values, because you whenever you collect data on any system, there is under the New Evidence Act and the Old Evidence Act, you have to give an affidavit or you have to give a certificate of digital evidence, which has certain aspects, which out of which one aspect is your hash value. Now, timestamping must be accurate and synchronized as per the cert details directions 2022. Now, certificate required for logs, data, exports, device level data. Now, this is the certificate I was talking about that a digital forensic expert gives on his letterhead that, this is the data that I have done the forensics for, and I hereby certify that this data has not been tampered and it must be kept. It must be signed by a person in charge of the device system. Now, this happens in two scenarios. Once, if you have an in-house forensic expert, then he has to sign it. He has to give the details of the computer on which it is printed. He has to give the hash values. He has to give the specifications of the computer, and he must sign it. And now, if it is an external or a consultant that you have hired, then he will give this of his system where he has taken the printouts, and it should also include the details of the device, the methods of extraction, like if it is extracted via some softwares or if it is taken as a screenshot from a mobile app, or whatever is the type of extraction that the forensic expert has used, and the hash values, as I said, to determine that the computer on which it is printed and the computer which provides the hash values match. Now, this is section 63 and 65 of the Indian Evidence Act, and which is now the 63 of the BNS Act. Now, what is the importance for CPS investigations? The investigation should tell you who is liable. It should determine the liability in case of an accident. It will help assess if the accident was malfunctional or it was a cyber attack, whether the validation compliances with IT Act and certain directions, and whether it is critical for proving negligence, tampering, or sabotage. So these are certain important aspects for an investigator when he investigates CPS in case of the liability process. Now, what is the key challenges in CPS data digital evidence? It is volatile because it has real-time data, so it keeps on changing. So it is very, very, very important when you do your digital forensics. Then the multi-device evidence, because your devices, there are different devices as sensors, controllers, count. So it is very important that all the devices that are used by the CPS should be forensically done, so that all the details are there in the 65B, 63B certificate. Then what are the proprietary firmware formats that have been used? There is always sync issues because there are distributed system. As I said, there is a lot of data. There are multi devices that are involved. So it is very, very important that your forensic should be structuredly logging with the forensic expert being ready to collect all the data and migrate it to one place. Now, ethical challenges in CPS. Now, bias in algorithms and autonomy. So sorry. One sec. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sorry. Ethical challenges that we face in CPS. First thing is the bias in algorithms. Now, this is important because many CPS depends on AI and ML systems. Autonomous vehicles, there are industrial robotics, there are medical devices. If the underlying models are biased or unexplainable, unfair or harmful, decisions may occur. So your algorithm should not be biased. It should be fair so that it does not lead to any wrong decision. Next is the tension between the autonomy and the human control. As you know, CPS gain the more autonomy, humans may rely on them blindly. We see this over. So it should have a connection that, if it is collected autonomously, humans should work on it and make sure that whatever data or whatever he's submitting is ethical and there is no issues with regards to the authenticity. Now, algorithm decision making, as I said, autonomy versus human control, there should be ethical dilemma. This is one thing. Now, third thing is privacy and data, surveillance and privacy risk. Now, why? Because there is continuous data collection from sensors, as I said, there is location tracking and behavioral monitoring, there is ethical problem with ambient surveillance. There are smart city cameras, there are smart homes, there are different types. Now, another important thing is the data ownership and the user rights. Now, the problem is who owns the CPS generated data is an issue. What is the rights of users versus the rights of operators, and what is the ethical misuse of secondary data? Now, first I will talk about is who owns the CPS generated data. Now, there is a challenge. Why? Because there is a confusion as to who owns it. The data ownership should be owned by generated or it should be owned by the user. Now, once it is generated, it is on the back end. So, most of the data that is generated, ownership is with the CPS. They have to keep it properly. The user has the right, as I said, to call his data, but the ownership of the data is with CPS and he has to keep it. Now, rights of users versus the rights of operators. Okay. Now, again, is the ethical misuse of secondary data like profiling, if there is any predictive analytics that it comes about. So, privacy and data talk or go hand in hand. Safety, harm, and accountability gaps. Now, there are system errors which cause physical injury. So, there is ambiguity in assigning the responsibility. Who's responsible for what? So safety gap arise when CPS cannot really rely on or maintain safe operations, especially in unpredictable or advisorial environments. Key examples are system errors causing physical injury, software bugs or sensor failures, hacked CPS influence or physical behavior that is hacked. Then attackers can manipulate smart cars or drones or medical devices, causing dangerous or uncontrolled motions. Then there are safety critical tampering issues, because when malicious interference is done with a lot of things like power grids or AC systems or hospital equipments, it can jeopardize life. So it is very, very important. Now, what is the gap? Now, what is the harm and the gap? Harm gaps occur when CPS cause or amplify harm caused due to a design flaw, or there is unexpected interactions or malicious exploitation. Now, what is the key forms of harm? First is a physical harm in the form of injuries, collisions, equipment damage due to miscalculations or missensoring. Then digital to physical harm, it occurs when there is a cyber attack. Then there is collateral society harm, because grid failures will give to blackouts which will have a effect on the society per se. And then become with regards to the CPS failure risk. Now, power grid and healthcare devices are two important sectors when there is a CPS failure in these two sectors. Now, first is your grid failures. As I said, power grid, there is blackout. Healthcare devices, there are hospital CPS failures will lead to a compromised patient care in cases of emergency and non-emergency. So what is the account gap that we were talking about? There is a lot of gap that happens when it comes to a failure of CPS, and what is the risk that is involved. Now, automotive risk. I will come to automotive risk as to how the advanced driver assistance system and the autonomous system. Now, legal obligations. India does not have a dedicated autonomous vehicle law, but it features a AS or AV systems that are legally governed through 5 major domains. First is your motor vehicles law, because it talks about your vehicle safety and your manufacturer's liability. Then your product liability law, which talks about the defective systems like your law of contract. Then it comes about cybersecurity and data protection rules, which talks about hacking and how the data logs are to be prevented. And then there is consumer protection law, because if there is any system or if there is any misleading claims that does, then this law comes into picture. And at last, the criminal law, if there is any negligence which is causing injury or death to any person. Now, what are the obligations under the Motor Vehicles Act 1988? First, the type of approvals and the homologation. For example, manufacturers must ensure that ADAS and AV components comply with the central motor vehicle rules. Then the AI standards issued by ARAI and ICAT. Then if the CPS failure results from non-compliance, then it is the manufacturer's liability because he has not complied with the rules. Second, an important thing is the mandatory safety recalls. Now, for example, under Section 110A of the Motor Vehicles Act, the government can order recalls or refunds or replacements if there is a failure due to non-compliance. Then what are the penalties? If the vehicle has a defective design or a software that may cause harm to users or road safety, then it will come under the perspective of a defect, and hence it is covered under the Vehicles Act. Now, duty to ensure safety deployment. Now, this law assures that human driver is responsible. Thus, manufacturer should ensure that ADS does not clearly, or your ADS does not create any unsafe reliance or unsafe situation, and clearly it should not be warned due to system limitations. So you should keep on taking your feedbacks so that you can take the liability upon or decide who is liable for the negligence. Then the second, as I said, is the product liability under the Consumer Act. Now, the Consumer Protection Act 2019, it introduced strict product liability, which applies to vehicle manufacturers, software developers, component suppliers, your import companies, and so on. So, this law is also important. Third is your cybersecurity obligations under the IT Act. As I said, the IT Act, Reasonable Security Practices and Rules 2011, which talks about what the manufacturers and operators must do. They must secure vehicle issues. They must have networks and sensor systems in place. It should prevent these sensors and network systems from unauthorized access, like anti-hacking obligations, as you said. Then they should maintain secure over the air OTA updates for mechanics of, if a CPS is hacked because of inadequate security, then the manufacturer and developer both can be held liable for negligence. So it is very important as to how you determine. Third is your certain directions 2022, which give you a mandate of logging of cybersecurity events. If there is any cybersecurity event, you have to log it. There is a 6-hour reporting of cyber incidents. You should have the data retention for investigation. Whatever data has been there, you have to keep it for investigation. And if there is any AV or AVDS failure due to cyber attacks, it must be reported within 6 hours from that attack. Again, the Digital Personal and Data Protection Act 2023. Now, this is because if a ADS or AV system collects biometric data, driver monitoring camera data, location data, manufacturer must first obtain consent, as I said. Then it should protect the personal data and sensitive data that they are taking from. Then they should avoid over collection, multiple collection, and if there is any data breach, they should have financial penalties for the user. Now, criminal liability under the Indian Penal Code. If a CPS failure harms, then there are criminal charges that are possible. For example, IPC 304A, which is causing death by negligence. Then there are various aspects of causing hurt or grievous hurt by negligence. So now, in this case, the manufacturer and the developer or a fleet operator will be held responsible because he will have the criminal liability under the code. Now, competition, contractual, and tort obligations. Now, these are something that are not competition but contractual also. But tort obligations are something that are common law because it are not assisted law or a written law. So, first I will talk about contractual liability between OEMs. Now, this is a tier 1 system where there is a contract between suppliers, software vendors. Then there should be a perfect definition as to what are the responsibilities of the supplier, what are the responsibilities of the software provider, what are the responsibilities of the vendors, and if in case of negligence, who is responsible for the failure, and what are the damages that can be given. Now, second is a tort liability, that is a civil wrong. India generally follows tort liabilities in the form of duty of care, breach of duty. Now, if there is defective CPS, and what are again the damages. Now, we will go to medical CPS as to how IoT infusion pumps and pacemaker security. Yes. So risk of direct, now again, what are the risks when it comes to medical? As I said, risk of direct physical harm to patients. Now that can happen due to various factors. First is the device malfunction. Now, if a device is malfunctioned, then there is direct impact on the patient. Okay. So yes, for example, I'll give you an example of an infusion pumps while delivering incorrect dosage, then ventilators misadjusting the airflow, or robotic surgical systems making incorrect movements, radiology machines overexposing patients to radiation. So these are sometimes some risks that can happen due to a medical CPS. And what is the impact? It is immediate injury. There is organ damage, there is worsened patient condition or fatal outcomes. Now, second thing is, if there is a sensor failure, what happens? The heart rate or the oxygen sensor misreading values, then there is faulty ECG, which can lead to, again, wrong treatment decisions, delayed intervention, and patient deterioration. So there are a lot of impacts that play your role. Now, smart cities and CPS is again an important aspect, because there are traffic systems and surveillance data which collect a lot of privacy. Now, what is the privacy impact when CPSs are used in smart cities? First is mass data collection and loss of anonymity. Now, what happens is CPS in smart cities collect real-time location data like GPS, Wi-Fi, traffic sensors, facial images in the form by CCTV or say smart surveillance system. Also, mobility patterns like public transport cards, vehicle sensors, then energy and water usage from smart meters. So this is very impactful because they directly collect real-time data. So what is the impact of the privacy on CPS is individuals become continuously trackable. Everyone is traceable or trackable. Even unanalyzed data can be re-identified using AI and pattern matching. So people lose the practical ability to remain anonymous in public spaces. So that is the reason there is a loss of lot of immunity, and there is an impact on the personal data. Second, constant surveillance and reduced civil liabilities. Now again, surveillance data, there is high. When it comes to smart cities, there are high resolution CCTV cameras with facial recognition. There are drones for crowd monitoring. So this all impacts your data or your privacy. So that is the reason your policies should be very, very stringent when it comes to what data is collected, how your data is stored, what data can be given to the law or police in cases of circumstances, or there are certain circumstances which are out of the intermediary or the data collector, that in no matter he has the right to deny giving the data if there is a quota. So all these aspects should be specified in your privacy. That is the reason your CPSs should have a perfect privacy policy that determines the collection of data and what type of data is collected. Now, again, same privacy in CPS. As I talk data collection, profiling risk, there is a lot of risk because there is real-time data collection, there is high resolution data collected. So all this should be kept encrypted properly so that the privacy of the users should not be at any point of time used for wrong purposes. Now, this is a very important aspect when it comes to cybersecurity, red teaming. So I will just, in short, tell you what is red teaming. So basically, red teaming is a process of simulating a real-world cyber attack to test an organization's security posture, whether what are the security postures of the organization, including what is the defense if there is any cyber attack, what is the real-time data that is gone. So red teaming is the process when you stimulate the real world cyber attack and test the organization if it is ready, if the organization is ready for any cyber attack, or if a cyber attack happens, the organization is not at all ready to deal with it. Now, the goal of this red teaming is to evaluate the organization's ability to detect and respond to an attack, often without the knowledge of internal security team. Now, here the internal security team is your blue team, because your blue team never knows when a cyber attack is going to happen. So your red team challenges your blue team in order to understand whether your organization is ready to take take the attack or no. Now, this happens by way of ethical hacking. Now, what is the role of ethical hacking when it comes to red teaming? Now, ethical hackers play a very central role in red teaming, which is the practice of simulating, again, as I said, realistic adversarial cyber attacks to evaluate an organization's security posture. Now, unlike malicious hackers, ethical hackers operate with authorization because they cannot do it unless and until an organization appoints them to do it. They follow a set of rules before, because they have an mute. Yeah. Yeah, so they act with authorization because before acting, they have an engagement agreement with your organization. They give what is the scope of the red team, what all they are going to check, and what are, if in case there is any loop, what are they going to give the report on, or what are the implications that they have to do about. So they talk, they always go hand in hand with your blue team, without which it is very, very impossible. Now, again, important thing is your simulated attacks. Now, simulating realistic attacks. Now, ethical hackers replicate the methods used by cyber criminal gangs, insider threats, or nation state APT groups or activists. So what they do is they mimic how actual attackers infiltrate your system, move laterally, how they escalate privileges, and they extrapolate data from your this. And now the purpose is to reveal the vulnerabilities that traditional testing often misses. Now, traditional testings can be in the form of internal audits, scanners, or checklists. Then what is the resilience testing? Now, testing the full security ecosystem. Now, this is why, because red team goes beyond the simple vulnerability scanning, because ethical hackers or the red team assesses your network security, your cloud configuration, your application security, your physical security, your human vulnerability. For example, phishing. If phishing can be done, they will throw an email through phishing and see whether there is any resilience in your system. And the purpose of this entire testing is to defense, create a stack defense, and not just to keep your any loopholes to any individual components when it comes to the red teaming. So, yeah. Now, what are the intellectual property rights in CPS, or what is the significance of IP? Now, in CPS there are different IPs that are protected. First and foremost is your patents. Now, patents, because they give you exclusive right. Then trademarks, because they will give you a brand identity. A particular, now in trademarks, it can be a brand name of your system, a distinctive logo, a tagline. Now, copyright will come in picture when it comes to your user manuals that can be copyrighted, or if there are any particular screens in your CPH which have very artistic workflows, or your flowcharts are artistic, that can be protected by way of copyrights. Now, patentable elements, as I say, your sensors and your algorithms are patentable. Now, if you patent the CPS systems, of course, if it is patentable or not, there is a different criteria for patentability. I will not go into it. But if your elements are inventive, they pass the test of patentability, then you can patent your sensors and your firmware algorithms. Now, this will give you exclusive rights to use these sensors and algorithms. If someone uses an algorithm that is very similar or giving the same output, you can take an action. So now, for example, what relevance is there when it comes to patentable elements like sensors and algorithms? It is for example, an innovative sensor design or actuators or embedded system architecture, or which controls safety mechanisms for autonomous vehicles or industrial robots. Or there is a novel communication protocol for CPS networks that can also be patented. And it also, the main impact of IP and patent here is patent prevents competitors from using, making or selling patented technology without your permission. As I said, in software, the first and foremost important is a code. Now, software will give you legal protection for the original works. It will fix an authorship and ownership, and it will also give you a tangible medium. Now, in CPS, is what can be copyrighted is your base software code in the form of a source code or an object code. Your dashboards, as I said, if there are some good in dashboards that are fancy or that have a very artistic value, that can be protected in by way of an artistic work. Then your AI modules can be protected. Your HMI, human machine interfaces, can be protected by way of copyrights. Then your simulating models can be protected as copyright. Your user manuals can be protected as copyrights. And copyright is, again, the main basis of IP is you will have the exclusive right to reproduce and use it, and no one will have the right to copy it or reproduce or even distribute it without your permission. Now, trademark is another important aspect because it will protect distinctive logos of your product, names of your product. Some single device like Nike is, if you have a distinctive device, that can be protected, and all this will define your identification to the public. Your consumer will have or identify your product basis your trademarks, and then they will also have a consumer trust as to that I am using a product that has a trademark registered. It has an very important consonants or conscious for IP awareness. So that consumer trust is built if you have something protected under the IP. And again, trademark law or your trademark will help if anyone is trying to sell similar product which is not basis your patent. He must be having a totally different algorithm, but he is taking a name that is very close to you. Or in trademark aspect, you call it as confusingly similar, you call it as deceptively similar, or you call it as phonetically similar. So you can prevent this type of unscrupulous traders or people from passing off, because what they do is they have a completely different algorithm, but they take a name that is very similar to you and they pass off. For example, they sell off their products as of your products. So trademark has a very important role. And with regards to copyright, I just forgot to mention that in India, copyright registration is not mandatory, but it is recommended just to give a clear-cut right of ownership. With regards to trademarks and patents, there is no right if you have no registration. So you have to have registration for those. Now, what is the CPS governance with regards to your internal guidelines and policies? Now, internal guidelines and policies for CPS system organizations. Now, organizations using CPS must have certain policies which must be comprehensive and which must talk about technical, ethical, and legal risk. First, governance and compliance policies. There should be a policy with regards to regulatory compliance. Then there should be an internal governance. They must establish a governance committee to oversee risk management updates and also the policy enforcement. Second, it should have cyber security policies such as the access control. It should implement a role-based access control and multi-factor authentication policy for all your CPS interfaces. There should be periodical reviews of the logs. Then there should be protection, or there should be the detention of logs if in case you need it for your further purposes of digital forensics or whatever, as we stated. Then there should also be policies with regards to network security. Then there should be policies with regards to your incident response. For example, if there is an incident, how will you respond? There should be a internal guidelines and a policy for your incident response. For example, how the response is to be incident, how you will respond. Is there any timeline where within which you will respond to the incident, how it will be governed, or what action will be taken, and what implications will be there if you have it. Now, very important, what are the rules and compliances for CPA organizations which deal in cross-border data flow? Now, cross-border data flow is very, very important, because organizations that handle, personal, sensitive, or proprietary, even proprietary data often need to transfer it to national borders, for cloud storage, for analytics, for your survey, customer service. So there are a lot of things that come into picture when you have cross-border data flow. So what are the legal frameworks governing cross-border data flow in India particularly? Now, first is the Act of 2023, and now is the Digital Personal Data Protection, which is DPDP Rules 2023, which talks about cross-border transfer is allowed if following conditions are met. Now, it is met only if it is only allowed to transfer to a country or organization that is approved by the central government. It should have adherence to the contractual clauses ensuring data protection, compliance with the DPDP principles, including purpose, limitation, consent, and data security. And organizations must maintain a record of all cross-border transactions that are taken place over it, and certain categories of even sensitive personal data is required to be exported. So even that is to be complied with, or what data is given and what data is not to be transferred. When it comes up with regards to the European Union, the GDPR rules, that is the General Data Protection Regulation, then personal data can be exported outside the EU only if the receiving country ensures adequate data protection law or has standard contractual clauses that we will keep the data adequate, or if there is any binding corporate rules apply for the multinational organizations having cross-border transactions. And all this is subject to consent from the data provider. Now, what are the key compliances requirements for cross-border data flow? First is data classification. You need to classify your data into personal, financial, health, and proprietary. Now, you should determine, again, after this, you should determine whether it is explicitly approved or additional safeguards are to be required when it comes to the requirements. Now, consent management. You should, from the users, you should have or you should obtain explicit informed consent from the data subjected for cross-border transfers. As I said, your privacy policy should have strict clause with regards to, and should have strict implications also if it is not done without the consent. It should have to maintain the records of consent for adult audit purpose. Then what are the contractual safeguards? Again, as you said, if there is any contract, we have to see that the contractual obligations are obligated and there is no breach of contract. That is one compliance that we need to do. And if all this happens, then outside India or India, there are certain provisions that can come into picture that are like data protection obligations, security controls, data breach notifications, and purpose of the limitation and retention and restriction of the data is an important aspect. Now, what are the security measures that can be taken for companies or CMS that deal with cross-border data flow? Encrypt data in transit and at rest so that you can keep your data encrypted at one server. Then use secure communication channels like VPNs and TLS. Restrict access to unauthorized people. You give your access only to authorized people and to a very limited hierarchy in your organization. Conduct periodic security audits of recipient system and also conduct audit of those who already have your permission to access the data. Now, data retention and minimalization. Again, important aspect is okay. So sorry. Yeah. Contractually separate images, record keeping. Now, what are the consequences for non-compliance? Now, if there is no compliance under the DPDP or GPDR or their contractual obligation depends upon what are the terms of the contract. But if there is no compliance for DPDP or GDPR, there is some repercussions in the form of suspension on, or blocking of cross-border data transfer, civil liability or class action lawsuits against the provider, damage to organizational reputation and client trust is the most important factor, that you might have lose clients, your organization reputation will be at stake. So if you don't comply, these are the important things that can happen. Now, what are the best principles for or best practices for organizations that deal with cross-border data flow? Map all cross-border data flows and classify data. Then conduct data protection impact assessment. You conduct what data is being transferred, how is it transferred, whom it is transferred. So that is again an important aspect that is to be taken into uh, consideration. Then keep all the data that is transferred ready for audit by way of an documentation. Documentation is important because again, if there is any lawsuit against you for non-compliance and you have complied it and there are allegations of non-compliance, you can push this data as an evidence that we have complied with everything and this is the data that we have transferred. So it is very, very important. And another important thing is we have to train your employees on cross-border data handling and what are the security requirements that are used when it comes to cross-border data flow. Now, what are the standards? Very important standards for deploying CPS. One is your ISO IEC 27001 and one are your BIS guidelines. Now, first, ISO IEC 27001 is an information security management standard which provides a framework for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an information security management system, which is called as an ISMS. So this is very relevant for CPS because CPS heavily rely on interconnected hardware, software, and networks. ISO IEC 2701 ensures that confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data and control systems are maintained. Now, what are the key requirements for CPS organizations? Now, the main important things is again the BIS guidelines and what are the important things the guideline gives and how the guidelines are to be protected when it comes to the standards for CPS. Now, what is the another thing that is very important when it comes to aspects is what is cyber insurance? What are the types of insurance that has to be taken, and what are the types and what is not to be taken? Now, general insurance is something that can be taken. Then there are insurances which talk about liability or director liability that can be taken. Then when it comes to your third party insurances, that it is ensured that third party insurances are taken whenever you have consultants or vendors. Make sure that your vendors and your consultants are insured. If not, you have to make sure that they get insured. And what are the types of insurances that you have to take? As I said, vendor insurance, then there is a director or owner liability insurance, your third party insurances. And what can be excluded is in respect to CPS, like all the normal insurances that we have for our employees, that can be excluded. But this type of vendor insurances, your insurances with regards to your third party consultants, your director in liability, free liability insurances are very important, and those needs to be taken care of. Now, digital forensics and evidences. This is again an important aspect that is uh, very, very important when it comes to admissibility of whatever evidence that you have collected. If in case there is any issue, or if in case there is any thing like a suit or a court action that you need to take against someone, or or something that is very, very important for a point of view of a legal aspect, that is again very, very important, which can be taken into consideration. So you have to first and foremost, if you don't have a internal auditor which is there, you have to have an internal or external auditor. Then all the evidences are to be collected by special tools, then there is a certificate. All the evidence is to be recorded. As I said, you should have a video that how the forensics is done. Then you should have all this evidence is stored very securely. Then again, the importance that all this evidence, once it is collected, to make it admissible, there is an evidence after the digital certificate that is to be submitted. As I said, if you have an internal person, it will be signed by the internal person. If you have a consultant, he will sign it for you, which will have all the aspects or all the specifications of your the computers that where your digital evidence is stored. For example, the name of the device, the processor, what are the specifications, what is the hash code, then when was the data downloaded, when was the data printed, and whatever tools you have used, even that are included in your digital forensics. And this is a very important aspect, because if you do it without digital forensics, then the question of admissibility will come in picture, which will be very difficult for you as an organization to prevent if there is unauthorized usage or if there is any leak internally. Then what are the ethical guidelines? Like what are the professional codes, or what are the one second. What are the benchmarks that you have to set up, or there are different aspects when it comes to guidelines. Because what happens is, if you don't have any guidelines or codes or benchmark is set, then it becomes very problematic when it comes to the ethics of the organization, or it comes anything that is comes into picture due to unethical stuff. So it is very problematic. Yes. Now the global benchmarking is, you should benchmark companies which have a lot of guidelines that are published. You should also have benchmarking of international standards, BIS. Then you should also have benchmarking of international companies who work in the same domain. And what are the codes, professional codes? What are the basis of this is the ethics part is very important, because ethical guidelines will help protect all the legal repercussions and everything from it. Then what is and how a secure architecture can be done? There should be zero trust. There should be zero trust with regards to your architecture. You cannot trust your architecture, so there has to be human trust that is involved. End-to-end encryption of the entire data is also important when it comes to securing your architecture. Now, what are the faculty guidelines when you teach CPS ethics? One is an active learning approach, interdisciplinary teaching methods. You encourage research and innovation by way of having a lot of guest speakers on IP, guest speakers on all the CPS, how and what can be protected by way of intellectual property rights, how and what can be protected by way of contracts, what and how can be protected by way of legal implications and repercussions. And the best practices that the faculty should follow is there should be open and question answer session, which will help the students to acquire the knowledge, and even the faculty to acquire some knowledge from the students when it comes to a Q&A session. So these are the guidelines for the faculty to teach the CPS ethics. And now the floor is open for questions. So if anyone has any questions, I can take it up.
Participants, if you are having any question, you can ask.
If they
Sir, may I request if
yes.
As an advocate and as a technical, I think ISO auditor as well, could you share some of your experiences or some cases?
Okay, ma'am. So see, I'm not an ISO auditor per se.
Okay.
I'm not even a forensic, but with regards to IP, I will give you a lot of cases that we are currently also working on. So what has happened is there was one company who was providing a very important and a very good system for real estate for automotive for an automotive client of its. The only question that came up afterwards, what we thought is that the client my client's company to whom they had given the system, they created a similar system and they started entering their domain. Now, when they came to us for a legal opinion, the thing that we first asked them is whether you have any privacy policy, whether you have any terms of use, whether you have any document with regards to how you are the owner, or are there any clauses? Their answer was no. Okay. Second, do you have any contract that you were giving services to that particular person? They said no. We just have a purchase order, but a purchase order has no contents or has no contractual obligation. So what happens here is, first and foremost, you don't define who's the owner of the IP. What is the IP that is there in the CPS? What is the data that who's the owner of the data? Then there are multiple aspects, as in you cannot do reverse engineering of my product. You cannot have a similar, because see, they don't have, even if it is not patent, they have some important IP that is created due to the creation of the product. So, the important thing is that as an advocate and IP lawyer, I recommend is you should first define who's the owner. First and foremost, you should go for an intellectual property. That can be in the form of, as I said, patents for your algorithms, copyrights for your UIs, your user interfaces, your user manuals, trademark for your product name. Confidential information should be kept as trade secret. So there are multiple. So as an IP lawyer, I always recommend that you should first see and secure intellectual property. Once that is done, you should lay down the rules, or you should lay down a proper contract that how you will use and what not should be the implications on the user. Third, it should have a proper agreements like end user license agreement. Then there should be terms of use, how you can use, then what privacy policy. As I said, if anyone questions you or challenges you that my data is misused, I had given data on your system, then you should have a privacy policy in place which will safeguard your rights. That, see, there is a privacy policy which states that you had given, we have taken reasonable efforts to protect your data, but this is due to some form malware or something that is out of my control, so we are not responsible. So all these aspects, ma'am, are very important when you come. But with regards to as you said, for faculty, what I would say is, first and foremost, is educating our students with regards to intellectual property, having more and more lectures on what is IP, what IP can be protected, like what forms of patents, in what copyrights subsist, what can be trademarked. But for you guys, most important is industrial designs and patents. So these are most important. So this will be my recommendation, that we should have a lot of IP centered programs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, actually we registered for copyright in the month of May almost.
Okay.
But still we are not getting any. I mean,
No.
some
So, ma'am, what
changes
happens?
they just have,
I
some
will
queries we
just
had.
yeah.
But where to contact actually, because no
See, ma'am, what happens is,
email
I
or
will
no
tell you.
contact number is available. So
No.
actually nothing else had come from their
So,
side.
ma'am, basically what happens is, first and foremost, I'll correct you. You have applied for registration and it is under process. So now, for example, for copyright, ma'am, there is a process that once you file it, now everything is online. Once you file it, you have to upload all the documents.
Yeah, we already uploaded the
So I will
documents.
just tell
Some
you the
query
process.
also arise from
Okay, the query. So
mail.
after you reply to the query, if they are satisfied, they will issue a certificate, or they will go under re-scrutiny. Now, re-scrutiny, if they are not satisfied with your response to the query, and after even re-scrutiny, if they are not satisfied, they will call you for an online hearing where they will ask you for certain questions regards to the application. And if they are, then they will tell you that this is the thing we are looking for. You should submit this, and then they will, process your application. But
yeah, right. It is now under re-scrutiny. It is showing, and no hearing or something else like
no.
that.
After
Since
re-scrutiny, ma'am,
4 5
at
months.
least, ma'am, your application is May, so it will at least take at least 3-4 months more for your application to get processed. If
Right, that's
everything
why I'm
is
saying
in.
like it is more than 5 months almost. So that is why I'm asking this.
Okay, no, ma'am. Normally it takes 1 year. It takes.
Okay. Yeah, then
If there is
we'll
no
wait, I
if there
guess.
is no scrutiny, we have cases where I have registered copyright even in 30 days. Because but the 30 days period starts after 30 days from your date of filing, because first 30 days is a mandatory waiting period. So for everyone's ease of reference, I'll just give you, because I see in academics most centric is copyright. So everyone goes for filing copyrights of your research papers or your thesis or whatever. So so just for ease of reference, if ma'am permits, I will just give you that the process is: you file an application, you submit of documents. So first, from your date of application, 30 days is a mandatory waiting period. So your application is waited for 30 days. After 30 days, your application is examined. Now, after the examination, there are two possibilities. One, if everything is in perfectly fine, that is, if I am attorney on record, it will go straight. Second, if a query raises, then you have to respond to the query within 30 days. After, as I said, if they are satisfied, again, there are two scenarios. It will be processed. If they are not, they will issue a rescrutiny. Now, after rescrutiny, if you reply, again, there are two scenarios. If they are satisfied with your rescrutiny, they will process your application. Third, no, they will call for hearing. In the hearing, normally what happens is, in the hearing, they tell you that this is what I needed, and you submit it and I'll process it. So the normal timeline is around a year. So this is the normal process for a copyright application to travel in India.
Okay, then I think mine is re-scrutiny, so I think I'll wait for a few more months
Yes.
maybe. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much, sir.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Your session is very informative.
Any other participant having query can ask. You can post your query in chat box also.
Yes, that is also fine.
Sir, I think no questions. No questions.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So
Thank
thank
you
you,
so much.
sir, for sharing your expertise and
Thank you.
insights on the complex legal landscape surrounding CPS and cybersecurity. Your presentation provided valuable perspectives towards CPS failure risk and ethical consideration in CPS system. Your efforts have helped bridge the gap between law, technology, and practices. Thank you so much for enlightening us towards these
Thank you, ma'am.
legal activities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
So much, sir.
Yes. Good day.
Good day. Thank you, sir. All the participants submit your feedbacks using these two links.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, actually, I have posted that query in the chat box also. That feedback form is just accepting Google account, Gmail account only, but my official account is not Gmail. So kindly help us to fill the feedback for the sessions.
All 4 sessions or yesterday's feedback you have filled now?
Yes, I have filled yesterday's also, but using my Gmail account only, because there was no other option. I can not use, I'm not able to use my registered mail ID.
Okay, today also you fill with that same option, ma'am. I'll
Yes,
consider
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
your
Same
feedback.
problem with me as well.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
here, Raki.
Okay. So you use your Gmail accounts. We will identify you with your name. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay.
Same problem with me also, ma'am. For the first session, I filled with another Gmail account instead of registered Gmail account.
Okay, sir. We'll identify
I think
with
it
your
will be
names.
for all the same problem because ATAL we are doing with official mail ID, no? But
Yes,
here
yes.
it is a Google form, so it will be a problem, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll try to overcome that problem. By the time
Yeah.
for yesterday's and today's, you fill with your Google account. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. And please read the parameters carefully because it
Yes,
shows
ma'am. Yes,
1
ma'am.
as
We are
a
reading.
excellent and 5 as a poor. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, participants, for joining this evening.
Thank you so much.
Tomorrow we'll meet at 6 p.m. again with the same link. Thank you. Good night. I request all the participants, please leave the meet.